My name is Michael Flinck, and 2 years ago, I bought a car. That's not that interesting, is it? Americans buy cars pretty much every day. How many here own or lease a car? Wow, quite a few of you. Does anyone have 2 cars in their household? Okay, quite a few. So that's pretty much what we do in America, right? We just keep buying or leasing cars from the day that we get our driver's license until we're no longer able to drive. It's an endless cycle. It's part of our culture, really. But does it have to be? So before I bought my car, I was car-free for a decade. And I'll have to tell you, I really struggled with this purchase. It led me to research this topic obsessively, actually, and to try and find out if it's really necessary. Do I really need to own a car? And I came to a surprising conclusion. I really want to share it with you. I believe that the car I have now will be the last car I ever own. I don't believe I'll buy or lease another car as long as I live. And I can prove it to you because of sustainability, economics, and efficiency. Let's go back in history for a moment. Over 100 years ago, Henry Ford invented the Model T and basically marketed it to every family in America. Fast forward to today, and the car is virtually synonymous with mobility in America. There are now 1.2 billion cars in the world. I call this the car ownership model. So this model has driven our economy for years, and it's created millions of jobs, and it's really shaped our whole identity. But there's a problem. It's not really sustainable. So this slide shows the vehicle ownership rates in the US and in the world. The blue line is the US, where we currently have around 800 cars per 1,000 people. And the red line is the rest of the world, which is on average about 180 cars per 1,000 people. Now, if the rest of the world starts to own cars at the same rate as the United States, there's going to be 6 billion cars in the world. That's over 5 times the number of cars that we have on the planet today. And, in the emerging middle classes in India and China, heavily populated countries, if they start owning cars at this rate, there's going to be a huge demand for steel, rubber, and all the other raw materials that go into making cars. Not to mention the pollution, carbon emissions, and everything else that these cars will generate. It will make our air unbreathable and drastically exacerbate climate change. But there's good news. We don't actually need all those cars. So how many people drive their car an hour per day? Anyone 2 hours? 3 hours? So the statistics show on average we spend about an hour and a half in our car each day. And that works out to be about 6% of the time we spend actually using our car for its intended purpose. The rest of the time, 94% of the time, that car is just sitting there, underutilized, rusting, depreciating, parked, costing us money, really. That's not the only problem with the car ownership model. There's also the cost of a car. The American Automobile Association estimates that the average American spends $8,698 per year on their cars. That's insurance, depreciation, finance charges, gas, all those things. And that works out to be about $23 per day if you do the math. Now, that doesn't even include parking, believe it or not. And parking is a huge expense in urban areas like ours. Not to mention, parking is also a hassle. So, if you live in an area like Jersey City, you probably can't get the kind of parking you want when you want it, even if you're willing to pay for it. Case in point, my wife and I, we park our car on the street pretty much out of necessity. And we have a rule. Once we park our car for the night, we don't move it, because we will lose our spot. We could rent a reserved parking spot near our house It would probably cost about $250 per month, and I don't think there's even really one available. So what we do instead is we take an Uber or a Lyft whenever we have an evening appointment. And you know what? It's actually cheaper. And the most frustrating thing about parking is when I go out on my street and I look at all the underutilized cars out there, I think to myself, wow, what if every one of these cars was a shared car? Would we ever have a problem with parking? Studies show that one shared car can actually remove 9 personally owned cars from the road. So you have to ask ourselves, do we really have a problem with parking? Is there a parking shortage? Or do we just have too many cars? In fact, traffic is a stressor as well. And as many as 30% of the traffic going in urban areas is just people driving around looking for parking. And traffic can ruin a whole weekend if you don't plan for it, right? So we have all these negatives about the car ownership model. So we have to go back and ask ourselves, what are we really trying to achieve? What is our goal with owning these cars? Why do we own cars? And I think people have a lot of different answers for that, but I think they boil down basically to 3 categories. Number 1, we need to get places. Some trips just require a car, and there's no way around it. We also need the convenience, right? We have to be able to get places easily. We don't always have time to wait for an off-peak train or a weekend bus. And we want the freedom. We want to be able to just pick up and go and not have to plan weeks in advance for a particular trip. Well, I think the car sharing model can actually get us to those 3 goals at a lower cost and more sustainably, and even with more freedom than what the car ownership model allows. So let's explore a few use cases. So let's say there's an urbanite who uses public transit for their commute, and they're a casual car user. They own a car because they want to go to the beach or go apple picking sometimes. But they might be paying up to $975 for that trip to the beach per month. So let's say they get rid of their car, there's a short-term car rental, Zipcar or Maven, which can allow you to rent a car on demand. For about $304 per month, you could take 4 full-day rentals, right? Now let's go to the next case. An urbanite who is maybe a little bit more heavy car user. Maybe you take a lot of trips, a lot of short errands. You run a lot of errands in town, or you hop around a lot. So there's a new kind of car sharing that's not available in Jersey City yet, but it's available in Brooklyn, Austin, San Francisco, some of the other cities. And it's called one-way car sharing. What it allows you to do is take a car from point A to point B, and you don't have to return the car from point B back to point A. You can just leave it at point B. So this makes car sharing a lot more useful for things like commuting, where you go from point A to point B, and you have to go to work for 8 hours. With a Zipcar, you have to pay for those 8 hours. With the one-way car sharing, you don't pay for those 8 hours. You just stop paying as soon as you finish your trip, right? So for $300 per month, that can get you 12 hours in a car, which is significant because remember, you're only paying for the time that you're actually driving the car. And if you want to stretch that dollar even further, get a bike share pass. So on nice days when you don't have a heavy load to carry, you could just take a bike. That could be significant in terms of the savings. Now, there's the other use case for a driving adverse commuter, right? This transit doesn't work for them, but they really don't really like to drive. They want to be able to get out to their job, and they'd rather be doing something while they're driving. When they're driving, they'd rather be doing something else. So there's the stress of traffic. So those are that's worth some money in terms of if I'm able to work on my commute, I can get some value for that time. And there's solutions coming to the market for this as well. So imagine a minibus or a jitney, like the ones that we have on Palisade Avenue and Newark Avenue, that are ordered up by your smartphone. So if there's 20 people in Jersey City who all commute to the same suburban office park in central Jersey, those 20 people would be matched together by the app and brought on a jitney bus out to their job. That allows you to monetize the time that you're spending on your commute and makes it so you don't have to actually deal with traffic. So these services are called Bridge. It's in Boston. Chariot is in Austin and some other cities, and these are coming soon. Now, if your commute is a little bit shorter, you might consider an Uber Pool or a Lyft Line. Probably some of you have done that before. And I commute by city bike to work, and an Uber Pool, a lot of times when it's raining, it might be only $4, which, you know, the path is what, $275? And there are future options coming too, where Uber and Lyft imagine non-professional drivers who just want to carpool with other people as a potential source of these trips. So that could also, of course, your mileage may vary depending on your situation, but it can also result in significant savings. Now, there's people out there like this, and I can tell because I can see your white knuckles and I can see your teeth clenching. You're the car attached, right? You're saying to yourself, no one's taking my car unless it's from my cold, dead hands, right? So you're the most interesting use case, but I think car sharing works for you as well. There's a service in San Francisco and other cities called Getaround, which puts a device in your car that turns your car into a shared car, into a rentable asset. It's kind of like Airbnb for cars. And it lets anyone come up to your car and use their smartphone to rent your car. Now, don't worry, there's insurance, so if anyone messes it up. And it's kind of like Airbnb for cars. But this way, you could actually realize some savings, like $225 per month if you were to rent out your car 5 days. If your car is a little bit more luxury, it could be even more than that. There are people who have bought Teslas and paid their entire Tesla bill just by renting out their car through this service. So it makes you wonder, right? If everyone did that, then every car actually could be a shared car. So at some point we'll reach a tipping point. The point at which, and it's a steep climb to get there as you can see, the point at which it's more convenient to car share instead of car possess is coming. And it's coming soon. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. The CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra, said that the auto industry will experience more change in the next 5 to 10 years than we've experienced in the past 50. So that point is coming, and it's coming sooner than you think. Now, you may be wondering, why did you, a self-professed car-sharing geek, why did you buy a car 2 years ago, right? But you can see the answer is car seats. I have 2 young kids, and no one has invented a car seat that's convenient for daily car sharing. So it remains to be seen how that problem gets solved. But once it does, I'll be your customer. So what's the point of all this? What am I trying to say here? I think I'm just asking, try it. If you're concerned about pollution, carbon emissions, the environment, try it. If you're fed up with parking and traffic, try it. If you want to save some money and you're concerned about your finances, try it. And if you want to be a better steward of the world's resources, try it. Don't worry, you'll still be able to go where you want to go, but these options are coming, and they're coming sooner than you think. So go share. Thank you.